again, a little difficulties. I don't know if anyone else is. The bandwidth seems a little slow or a little weird, but I do know that obviously there's some inclement weather in different areas. We are actually under cloudy skies right now. We had the rain, I'm assuming, from this latest storm, which is actually going more west of us, way west of us. So we got some residual rains and whatnot earlier, and it's a little gray out, but I'm going to try to get some pickleball in. But good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, and with us, that means Triumph Tuesday. We're going to talk about little stepping stones of what to triumph over. But good morning, everyone. It's Carroll-Sue, aka Naughty Boss, as I said, live from a loud, cloudy, kind of gloomy day, but not going to stop my happiness with two
Sistas. Good morning, everyone. My name is Janis, aka Wellness Diva 5.0. Triumph Tuesday. And how do you triumph when, like, for instance, I had an issue with Zoom yesterday, actually 2 times. The different little things that pop up during the day, right, that happen that may like throw us, off the beaten path for a moment. And the other thing that comes into that, as always, is mindset. So I'm just going to start off by asking kind of a general question. Does our audience have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? And do you know the difference between the two?
That is a awesome question. And it brings me to, a very, very important person to this world that is no longer here, which was Steve Jobs. And, where somebody came from a very much growth mindset in all aspects of his life. And when he, finally realized, obviously was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, his reflection of the outlook of money, time, growth, where you're growing, where you're not growing, what seeds you're sowing, which ones you should be sowing, really came into light. And, I often wonder, so many times you see with very influential people, whether they're influential in the corporate world, whether it's a talent, a singer like Michael Jackson or Whitney Houston, Prince, we can go through the whole list of gamut, Princess Diana, so many people that had so much influence in our life, not only in our lives personally, but in our lives as a whole, and the influence within, an industry or with motivation, really showing you how kind of the stepping stones of the different triumphs they had to go through to get that growth, to get that win. But when Steve Jobs kind of reflects on that towards the end of his life, because he's knowing that he's going to succumb to this pancreatic cancer, his reflection might surprise you. So with that in mind, with the growth, I wanted to share with you a little bit kind of his last words. And I, kind of put this together because they just, it's so funny because you don't think of someone in his position to reflect this way. And I think it's a lesson for triumphing over, but growth. And where is your mindset? Is it, busy being, like you said, is it growing in one direction, or are you, consumed with something? Just so much to it. So he says, at this moment, lying on the bed, sick and remembering all my life, I realized that all my recognition and wealth that I have is meaningless in the face of imminent death. I mean, how profound is that? You can hire someone to drive a car for you, make money for you, but you cannot rent someone to carry the disease for you. I mean, that first paragraph is just so impactful. As we get older, and we actually, the two of us actually talk about this, the reflections of as you age, you look at life differently because you have those experiences. So I'll continue, he says, as we get older, we are smarter, and we slowly realize that the watch is worth $30 or $300, both of which show the same time. Whether we drive a car worth $150,000 or a car worth $2,000, the road and the distance are the same. We reach the same destination. If we drink a bottle worth $300 or wine worth $10. We're still drunk. Not for everyone, but for a lot of people, yeah, if they're going to drink a whole bottle of wine, they're going to feel that. And then he says 5 undeniable facts. Do not educate your children to be rich. Educate them to be happy. So when they grow up, they will know the value of things, not the price. Eat your food as medicine. And we talk about this all the time, that, we always talk about gut health. So eat your food as medicine. Otherwise, you will need to eat your medicine as food. Whoever loves you will never leave you, even if he or she has 100 reasons to give up. They will always find one reason to hold on. And I thought that was key piece, correlating it to a visit yesterday. We were going through some old paperwork and a story. Michael, our son Michael, is an excellent writer. And I didn't realize, I saved a lot of his writing papers from, 30 years ago, 28 years ago, 19 years ago. And one of them, incidentally, was talking about the sacrament of marriage or whatever, and his reflection at that age, and he wrote it so well. And then when I had read this statement by Steve Jobs, and I kind of said that to him, and he said, yeah, I mean, that makes all the sense of the world. You can have 100 reasons why to give up, but if you got one, you still hold on. There's a big difference between being human and human being. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And, those are reflections from a man on his dying bed who had worked his butt off, had an excellent work ethic, and even to the moments of that impending realization that, this disease was going to succumb him. I mean, he was still talking right up to the end. And the reflections of what someone that worked really hard for their growth, for their development, for their mindset, to accomplish all that he did and enjoyed the wealth that came with all his hard work, really came to these enlightenments towards the end of his life, and how important and impactful to embrace what he says now when we're not at imminent death. I think that's the lesson that, ultimately he learned, that he came to this realization almost too late, and let his story be a reflection to us to remind us about that.
Wow, that's pretty darn profound, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lesson in our mindset, and, I can't even begin to fathom that type of mindset that he was in. And one thing, as I was walking this morning, as I was thinking about mindset, growth and fixed mindset, I think mine right now has never been stronger than ever. Mine's more of a growth mindset, whereas I don't want to say before, but, in certain situations, I definitely have a fixed mindset. So what I was wrestling with is you can't have both. I mean, there could be a situation where you are confident, you are postured in your position about something. To me, that's fixed. So does that fall within mindset? It may, but it's more toward what my beliefs are, how I feel about something versus where I'm going to something. So
actually combine the two. So this is where, the two of us will differ a little bit, because I truly believe that people can have it can be postured and fixed in a certain mindset, a certain cause, a certain way of thinking. But I think it takes a postured mindset to understand that you can have flexibility with that. Because if you don't have flexibility in that, at least enough to hear the other side out, or hear maybe a different outcome, or hear maybe a way of a different position or a way of doing, I think that's when we become totally fixed. Fixed, almost like stubborn, like we're not willing to bend, we're not willing to be elastic bands, to expand our mind. And I actually think that for those people, I think overall I'm happier for that. because I'm so willing, I can be so postured and fixed in one position, but I always know that band is with me. And I always want to be open to expand it more, or maybe expand it in a different direction that I didn't think was possible.
Good point. Definitely a good point. I think with, what I'm specifically referring to, I'm sure people know. But to me, that, I'm always willing to speak with people, excuse me, who definitely have opposing viewpoints, but not at the expense of the children. And I'll just leave it. That's where.
Absolutely. So now I understand where you're going from, because even sometimes when we get on the podcast, we don't know, we're not, I mean, as much as we are in each other's heads, we're not. So now, now I know the direction that what you mean by that. And so that is true. There are certain things that, that is etched in stone. That's a line in the sand that you cannot cross, whether it be an ideology, a purpose, reasoning, you just cannot go. And I think again, that shows the two sides of a coin, because in that, life, we always talk about that, triumphing over something. There's two sides to a coin, two sides to a position. There's right and wrong. There's racist, there's not racist, there's bigotry, there's good, there's evil, there's dark, there's light, there's nighttime, there's daytime. There's always going to be those things in this world that we can't change. I mean, we talked a little bit about that yesterday. But there are some things that you just can't waver on. And that is, I get that. That's a very fixed feeling. It's a fixed set position. And a lot of us have to do that. And I think when you are very confident in that belief, you don't get right. I mean, I know you don't get as ruffled. I don't get as ruffled when those that want to oppose it. Interesting that you went in that direction. I actually talked to a teacher friend of mine yesterday. We were going back and forth on Instagram, and I was asking her some questions, because I know in her district, maybe not necessarily the school that she's in, but in that particular whole district, they have been a lot of people, when they hear CRT, critical race theory, they don't realize that there's kind of segments underneath it that has really been worked in the school systems really for over 10 years. It was well over inundated in colleges, but now we're seeing that in grade schools. So, and I actually did a post about that yesterday, because, I think we're up to now 21 states that have banned it. And a lot of people are calling CRT, oh, we're not practicing that in our school. We are doing cultural responsive teaching, or you might hear cultural responsive theory, or even cultural responsive learning. So when I was chatting with her about this particular subject, and here's a teacher, teaches English, been teaching for probably close to 10 years anyways. Her response was, oh no, we're not doing CRT. We're not doing critical race theory. We're doing critical responsive teaching. And I said, you understand that is a stepping stone to CRT. And I'm surprised that many teachers don't know it, because cultural responsive teaching is, back in the day when because what they're doing is they're taking the same phrases or same terminology, but they're applying it differently. So back then, yes, it was very good to show cultural and share and teach about cultural differences, different mindset that comes with cultural differences, and applying like how many different leaderships in history that we had that came from all different ethnic backgrounds, yet the common goal was this. So back in the day, yes, teaching it that way was correct. But the way that those terms now are being used are disguised in another format. And that's what I was trying to enlighten her about. So I encourage everyone and anyone to, when you have that mindset, and like you talked about fixed mindset and or growth mindset, when you talk about these hot topics, these hot subjects, there are certain times where your mindset is going to be fixed. Like there's no especially when we're talking about children, like, what is good for children and what is not. Now, could that be up for interpretation on some general theories? Absolutely. But there's just some lines you cannot cross.
So true. So the line has been crossed, boom, over, done.
Yeah.
That's the way I kind of look at it.
So what did you think of, what would you say one thing over July 4th weekend that you triumphed over? Because a lot of time, that was a big weekend for a lot of people, cookouts, and, we're going to get, the healthy gut and, trying to kind of not sabotage ourselves when we're working so hard to, reach those goals.
Well, I definitely triumphed over eating because I like a good cookout. I like all the different salads. I love potato salad. I had just a little spoonful, and that was just enough. And I'm technically, I think yesterday I said I'm a two hot dog person, but a lot of times I might even have 3. Bloat me up with all that salt.
Did you like them burnt and crispy like Dad did? I always liked them.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. and I also love boiling them in beer.
Yes, that's a nice flavor. You can do that with kielbasa and sausages too.
Yeah, I have to be careful of all that other stuff, but
I know.
it really, and what I've learned too over the, past decade or so is to really eat to nourish my body, not to eat because I want to eat. There's a difference.
Oh, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And, I triumphed over, I did not have one sweet, not one single sweet. Saturday, we had the cookout, didn't have it, it was a big cookout. And actually at that cookout, I only had one hot dog. I had no side salads, nothing. I did have the jalapeno, or the bell peppers with a little bit of jalapeno, which obviously, as we talked about, caused havoc on my stomach, which I'm still actually feeling residuals of. So I was very careful. So, was I careful because my tummy was bothering me? Probably. I'm going to be totally honest about that, because I probably would have indulged a little bit more. I did not. This is probably the first holiday weekend where, picnic and barbecues is the theme, and I did not have any potato salad. But I did actually have some potatoes. What I had to do was, because of how I was feeling, I sliced them up almost thin like a potato chip, not quite that thin, but very thin. And I cut off some different herbs from my little herb garden, a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of white pepper, and I baked them. So they weren't fried, they were baked. A little bit of, herbs and stuff to give it some flavor, but like no mayonnaise, no onions, no bacon, no cheese, none of that stuff that I knew would play havoc on my stomach. So I have to say, overall, it was probably a very boring from a appetite perspective, and I was forced because I wasn't feeling good. So I'm sure if I was feeling better, I would have indulged a little bit more. So not that I'm grateful that I still feel like this acid reflux going on in my belly and in my chest, but sometimes kind of forces you to not overeat and or make better choices. So I was very, very careful about my choices.
Right. And the other thing too about food is let thy food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And it's so true. Like, why would you continually do something that you specifically know bothers the heck out of you? And I've been finding, like I said, this past decade, there are many things that I love to eat that I have to be very, very mindful of it, because I might love it, but it sure as heck doesn't love me. So
the same thing's happening in John about the meat, because I know you're talking about meat in particular.
Yeah, like, we had one of the days we had a piece of steak, and it was probably, it was a good sized piece of steak. And Gary said, well, why are you just cooking one? And I'm like, well, I'm only going to have a little, like, it was enough for about like 4 or 5 bites. And that was more than enough. That's like my limit. I just
Right.
I can't eat a lot of beef, and maybe have it once a week. So, like for instance, I got to take out some hamburger. So I know that I have to wait, another week before I even think about eating beef again. So it's really important to pay attention to those little details.
Right. There's so many people out there that have stomach issues, ulcers, autoimmune, Crohn's, diabetes, whatever it may be. And you've got to respect where your body is at. You don't, because those items are, especially if you know it, is poisonous to you. And I think that's how you have to look at it. That is, it's poison. I could not, like, for me, I have issues with certain creamy, very, what's the word I want to use? Rich, like a cheesecake or whatever. Cheesecake was probably one of my favorite desserts, and I actually make a really good cheesecake. But for me now, a spoonful is about all I can handle. And I recognize now that as much as I loved it, it's my enemy to my body. My mind loves it, but my gut doesn't. So I'm not going to put my gut knowing the outcome. I'm not going to do that. Because when you find that when you have those kinds of stomach issues or digestion issues, is it worth it? Is it worth it to go through all that pain of the aftermath? And for some people, it's days that it takes for your body to recover. So you're literally putting in something in your body that's poisonous to your body. So I think the mindset and triumphing over that mindset to say, look, it looks pretty, and also test the waters. Obviously, if you are a strong enough person, I can say, you know what? Let's try just a spoonful and see how that works. And if you have success with that, keep it at that. Try that for a little while. If that's working, maybe try a little bit more. If you start finding that you're having those same issues, back it off again. But don't just have the whole piece of cheesecake, or don't have, the big piece of filet mignon, or, ice cream, or any of those things that totally, you have to get the mindset. And it's hard. That's where the growth comes into your mindset, to understand, like, I'm putting poison in my body. It's not poison, but for my body, it is.
Right. And the other thing too, when you do have gut issues, it's really important to remember you need to back off the dairy.
Oh, yeah.
Dairy means cheeses, yogurts, all that kind of stuff. You need
Ice cream.
Yep.
Whipped cream.
I had a little, I made that fruit salad that Daddy likes. And Gary says, oh, aren't you going to put any ice cream on it? And although I could have put like a little spoonful of it on it, I'm like, no, I really don't want it, because I have to, all that stuff I have to really stay away from. That is hard, because I love ice cream. In fact, so much so, there's a place over, I believe it's Hamden. What's the name of it? Wentworth's. They make homemade.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And we are dying to go over there. And I'm thinking of the things that I would want to get. And I'm like, no, I would probably get the little kitty cup now. Whereas, when I lived in Florida and I was too Chantilly and driving by Rodeo Whip and stopping there twice in a day to get a waffle cone full of chocolate peanut butter ice cream, 2 of those sometimes a day. So yeah, not doing that.
No. And like, again, I go back to, is it worth that pain? I don't want to be in bed for 2 or 3 days. I mean, even, I went easy yesterday. I made chicken salad. And I only had a little bit of that with rye bread, because when you have digestion issues, even if you don't, rye bread is the best bread out there for your health. It really is. So, I knew that would be very gentle on my stomach. So I did that, kept it kind of bland. And then last night, we were going to go out to dinner, but then of course the rain came in. So we ordered pizza. It was fine eating the slice of pizza, but not so fine later in the night, because I'm still kind of baffling the stomach issues. So I said, okay, that's, and mine was very bland. There was hardly any sauce on it, had spinach on it, no garlic. I mean, I kept it bland and still had some that just that soury feeling in the belly that burns. And I thought, okay, this is not happening. So today I'm probably going to keep it to like toast and eggs, something very bland. And, I might make chicken. I was going to try to do fish. John really wants fish. So maybe I'll do a little fish for him, your favorite, and just kind of keep mine with toast and bland for a couple more days until I kind of get this in check. But takes a good mindset to triumph over that. And I know so many of our audience and our viewers triumphed over this weekend, whether it was going out and really enjoying themselves. There's a lot of people that were living in fear. Use this weekend to finally, break out of their homes and really have that great dialogue with family and friends and just being outdoors and loving life again. So that's nice. A lot of people went out and watched awesome fireworks. There's a lot of people boating. Even those that had inclement weather, managed to squeak in a little barbecue here and there in between the raindrops. So whatever you triumphed over, pat yourself on the back, whether it was something small that you think is, that's trivial. It's not trivial to you if you did it. Always pat yourself on the back for those little stepping stone milestones, because those are all baby triumphs that lead into a bigger triumph that you may not even know that's right around the corner. So with that, I'm going to go get some pickleball on, see how I do with my belly, but I've kept it kind of empty, so I should be okay. But whatever it is, think about what you're trying over. Go after it. Write your goals down. Check them off. And guess what? If you don't get to them today, keep them on the list and just carry them over to the next day. You can still get to them. You just got to make that time, have that great mindset. But this is Carroll-Sue, aka Naughty Bus, live from a gloomy looking Vero Beach right now with
TwoSistas. Hey everyone, it's Janis, aka Wellness Diva 5.0. Tomorrow, Wealth Wellness Wednesday, we will be on later in the afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Pacific Time. So we will see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Have a great Tuesday. Triumph away. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.